In this episode of Minds and Mysteries, we head down to Mexico to better understand the history of mining in the New World. We will visit Mexico City, where a powerful culture was conquered and their gold and silver looted. We will meander the narrow streets of some 16th century colonial mining towns. We will explore some of the oldest and richest silver mines ever discovered in colonial Mexico. Get ready to go south of the border and deep underground into the first silver mines in the New World. Now on Minds and Mysteries. The story of the settlement of America is littered with mining ventures. These early American mines have helped shape today's industrial world, yet only scant traces of them remain, their history hidden deep beneath our feet. But now, with the advent of new technologies, we can rediscover the world of the past in ways never before thought possible. My name is Mike Sandone, and it is my goal to seek out the very oldest mines in America. The ones dating all the way back to colonial times, to uncover artifacts and minerals that help tell their stories, to document and map the tunnels that snake through the earth, and to unravel an important but forgotten piece of American history. This is Minds and Mysteries. In the mid-15th century, the Spanish and Portuguese began searching for a sea route to India and China. And as a result, the Americas were discovered. The lust for precious metals helped drive the European age of discovery. It was a time when profits, rather than the pursuit of knowledge, dictated voyages of exploration. The conquest and settlement of mainland Mexico was spurred on by the prospect of precious metals. To better understand this story, Sophie and I head down to Mexico to follow the path of conquistadors and miners alike. We arrive in Mexico City. It is late October, and Day of the Dead celebrations are in full swing. We meander the narrow colonial streets, with the iconic sound of out-of-tune organ grinders as a backdrop. We ascend to the highest point in the city, the Tower of Latin America, completed in 1982, and take in the view. The city is built upon an ancient lake and seems to stretch forth to infinity. The people that lived here 500 years ago, the Aztec, had a long tradition of working precious metals and had even developed underground silver mines. In 1521, Spanish conquistadors and a band of Indian allies, led by Hernan Cortez, captured the city. The remains of this pyramid is where much of the fighting took place. Gold and silver was so plentiful here that even Cortez's lowest-ranked soldiers received a fortune in plunder. Some of these objects of art and reverence that survived the Spanish can still be seen in the National Museum of History. The museum is located in a verdant patch of parkland in the center of the sprawling city. Mexico City still retains a historical feel. Colonial Spanish architecture can be found throughout the city. so can the vestiges of the indigenous culture. A people that may have been conquered politically, but never in spirit. And this spirit is still tangible today. Although it is a thoroughly modern city, it still feels old. More like a European city, and unlike anything found in the United States.
Look at that, how well preserved the beams are.
Just sitting down to grab a bite to eat, I can't help but marvel at the ancient wooden beams and stone columns of this establishment. But back to the story. When no more gold and silver plunder could be found, the Spanish enslaved the native peoples to work the local deposits of gold and silver. Indian slave labor was legal under Spanish law because they had been captured in war, but many died of disease and hard labor. After the Aztec and the neighboring peoples had been subdued, and the nearby deposits of gold and silver depleted, the Spanish began exploring far to the north, into the land of the nomads. So we jump in the car and head north out of the city. On the outskirts of the city of Zacatecas, I noticed the scars of past mining, gaping open cuts, daylighted stopes, and stone ruins. I feel completely in my element as I get out my helmet and headlamp and head off-road. But I don't get far. A friendly security guard informs me that the mines are off-limits to exploration. I bid him adios and head into the city nearby. This is Zacatecas. In 1546, a small group of Spanish explorers, led by Juan de Tolosa, were led by local Zacatecas Indians to a rich deposit of silver. And this is Mina El Eden, an ancient silver mine that extends deep under the city. This mine has 7 levels, but we are now on the 4th level, and 1,050 feet below the surface of the earth. From the mid-1500s on, silver would be the primary metal mined here in the Viceroyalty of New Spain.
They will get their hands full of minerals like copper and iron, and when it was the time to eat, they will eat tacos, the canasta. Now these tacos will, when they eat them, they will practically get intoxicated, right? Mm-hmm. So right here in the state we have a food named tacos envenenados, which can literally be translated to poisonous tacos. All right, guys. So this is a shaft. So this is the way they will make the mines in the 16th century. So if you see the shaft is not directly all the way like straight, so it has like a certain inclination. In the 16th century, the people that used to work here were the mecapaleros, and they will have to climb all the way up from inside of the mine all the way up to the surface, actually with ropes and with ladders. Now these children will be called achichinquetls, words. Ach means water in Nahuatl, and chichi means sucking or extracting in Nahuatl.
After the mine in Zacatecas was discovered, the next most important silver mining region discovered was Guanajuato. We leave Zacatecas and head back south, through the country.
Hi, donkey!
And into the narrow cobblestone streets of the city. We grab a hotel overlooking Guanajuato and take in the view. Here, unlike Zacatecas, the mines are found in the mountains surrounding the city and not directly underneath it. We set out on foot through the narrow, maze-like streets, excited to celebrate Day of the Dead with the locals. And we certainly aren't disappointed.
Yeah. We could do that still.
Se aparece el mono.
These tunnels were once a drainage system under the city, and were later turned into roads. But starting in late October, they become a surreal party scene. After getting a late start the next day, we make our way up into the hills surrounding the city to visit 3 colonial silver mines. By the mid-16th century, the very richest ores had been depleted, and silver production was in decline. The practice of enslaving Indians to work the mines was also being phased out and replaced with wage labor. At this time, the silver ore was still being smelted in the same way it had been before the arrival of the Spanish. But in 1554, a technique recently discovered in Germany would breathe new life into the mines. This process was Mercury Amalgamation, known as the patio process. Silver ore was mined from these tunnels we are walking now. It was carried to the surface and crushed in an arrastra. Mercury and other ingredients were added. After some initial difficulty, one crucial ingredient was found to make the process work on the ores here: copper sulfate. After weeks of churning the mixture and letting it sit in the sun, the silver combined with the mercury and formed an amalgam. The amalgam was then heated to drive off the mercury, leaving behind the valuable silver. And big profits for the Spaniards. These mines are better preserved and documented than any colonial mines in the United States. There are tools and artifacts on display. I learned a lot about how these mines were worked and their unique ventilation system. Seeing such wonderful museums, it made me a little sad to realize that there is no equivalent museum in the United States. No place to learn about mining during colonial times. Not one single tool from a colonial mine is on display in any Connecticut museum, or for that matter is even known to exist. It seems that here in Mexico, people have a passion for their past, and a deep interest in their history. In the northeast US, we simply bulldoze our ancient mines, and even build houses on top of filled vertical shafts. All too often, development takes priority over history. In the 16th century, silver was flowing in unprecedented quantities to the Spanish port city of Seville, and became an important source of revenue to the Spanish crown. At this time, Spain was ruled by Philip II of the prestigious Habsburg dynasty. He claimed 1/5 of the gold and silver found anywhere in his kingdom, including here in Guanajuato. The Habsburgs ruled not only Spain and the Americas, but also their ancestral lands in Austria and the rich mining districts of Central Europe. Even while traveling through San Antonio, Texas, we spotted the famous Habsburg double-headed eagle, reinforcing just how far-reaching their empire once was. But this New World bonanza had little lasting legacies for Spain. Thanks to the constant waging of war against much of Protestant Europe. Although silver production would decline year by year, the Spanish colonies were a major source of envy and jealousy for much of the European world. These mines are what the colonists dreamed of finding when they explored the misty primeval forests and foreboding hills of New England, New Netherland, and New France. Seeing the colonial mines of Mexico has been a transformative experience. These are the oldest mines in North America and provide a counterpoint in many ways to the mines of New England, which we will examine in a future episode. The regions of Mexico we visited are full of character and nuance. There are endless opportunities for exploration, not only underground exploration, but cultural exploration as well. And I look forward to a return visit someday soon. But in the meantime, enjoy these scenes from the Mexico City Day of the Dead Parade.
1 y 2 de noviembre en México se celebra el Día de los Muertos. En México, la gente lleva flores al cementerio, lleva la comida favorita de los muertos, la gente decora altares con fotos, flores, velas, comida y calaveras para recordar, para celebrar a los que ya no están, para recordar, para celebrar a los que ya no están. 1 y 2 de noviembre en México se celebra el Día de los Muertos. En México, la gente lleva flores al cementerio, lleva la comida favorita de los muertos, la gente decora altares con fotos, flores, las cosas